Hello, friends! Welcome back to Book Demystified once again, and today we are going to discuss about the book The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. Now, I've got to tell you something that might shock you. The difference between the person struggling paycheck to paycheck and the millionaire next door isn't some massive leap or genius business idea. It's actually something so small, so seemingly insignificant that most people completely ignore it every single day. Picture this. You're scrolling through Instagram at 11 p.m., seeing another friend post about their new car, their vacation, their promotion, and you're thinking, how do they have it all figured out while I'm here eating ramen noodles again? Well, here's the thing that Jeff Olson discovered after working with thousands of successful people. It's not about the big moments. It's about what you did today, yesterday, and what you're going to do tomorrow that seems like it doesn't even matter. Let me paint you a real picture here. Sarah, a 28-year-old from Denver, was making $45,000 a year as a marketing assistant. She had $200 in her savings account and was drowning in $30,000 of student debt. Sound familiar? Meanwhile, her college roommate Jessica was posting pictures from her new house in Austin. The crazy part? They started at the exact same place 5 years ago. So what happened? Here's where it gets interesting, and this is exactly what Jeff Olson talks about in The Slight Edge. Sarah made one tiny decision every day that seemed completely meaningless at the time. While Jessica was buying her daily $6 Starbucks and ordering DoorDash 3 times a week, Sarah started bringing coffee from home and meal prepping on Sundays. We're talking about a difference of maybe $15 a day. $15! That's less than what most of us spend on lunch. But here's the kicker, and this is where the slight edge principle becomes absolutely mind-blowing. Those tiny, boring, unsexy daily choices compound over time like interest in a bank account, except way more powerful. Sarah's $15 a day saved and invested didn't just add up arithmetically, it multiplied exponentially. 5 years later, while Jessica was still living paycheck to paycheck despite making more money, Sarah had built a foundation that would eventually make her financially free. Now, you might be thinking, come on, saving $15 a day isn't going to make me rich. And you know what? You're absolutely right, if you're thinking about it the wrong way. See, Jeff Olson discovered something that completely changed how I look at success and wealth building. It's not about the money itself. It's about what happens to your brain, your habits, and your entire life philosophy when you start making tiny positive choices every single day. Think about it this way. When you choose to save that $15 instead of spending it impulsively, you're not just putting money aside. You're literally rewiring your brain to value delayed gratification over instant pleasure. You're building what psychologists call executive function, the mental muscle that separates wealthy people from broke people. And here's the wild part. Every time you make that tiny positive choice, it becomes slightly easier to make the next one. Jeff Olson calls this the slight edge, and it works both ways. Those tiny negative choices, they compound too, just in the opposite direction. Every time you choose the easy, comfortable, instant gratification option, you're making the next bad choice slightly easier. It's like sliding down a slope so gradually that you don't even notice you're moving until you're at the bottom wondering how you got there. Let me tell you about my own experience with this. 3 years ago, I was that person checking my bank account before buying groceries, hoping the card wouldn't get declined. I had this habit of stopping at 7-Eleven every morning for an energy drink and a breakfast burrito. Seemed harmless, right? It was just $8. But when I really looked at it, I was spending almost $3,000 a year on convenience store breakfast. $3,000! That's a nice emergency fund or a solid start to an investment portfolio. But here's what Jeff Olson taught me. It wasn't really about the $3,000. It was about the identity I was building. Every morning, I was telling myself that I was the kind of person who chose convenience over discipline, instant gratification over long-term thinking. I was reinforcing the neural pathways of financial mediocrity. So I started small, ridiculously small. I bought a pack of protein bars and started eating one on my way to work. Saved maybe $4 a day. Nothing dramatic, nothing Instagram-worthy, but something interesting started happening. After about 2 weeks of making this tiny positive choice, I started noticing other areas where I was being financially lazy. I canceled a subscription I forgot I had. I started checking grocery store sales. I began reading one personal finance article during my lunch break. None of these things individually would make me rich, but together they were building something Jeff Olson calls the philosophy of success. See, wealthy people aren't wealthy because they made one brilliant decision. They're wealthy because they consistently make slightly better choices than everyone else, day after day, year after year, until the compound effect kicks in and creates what looks like overnight success. Now, here's where most people get tripped up, and Jeff Olson addresses this head-on in the book. We live in a culture obsessed with dramatic transformation. We want the 30-day challenge, the life hack, the secret formula that changes everything immediately. But real wealth, lasting financial freedom, doesn't work that way. It's built in the boring, unsexy, seemingly insignificant moments when nobody's watching and nobody's cheering. Think about Warren Buffett. The guy's worth over $100 billion, right? But he's been making basically the same investment decisions for 60 years. Reading annual reports, buying undervalued companies, holding for decades. Nothing flashy, nothing that would get him TikTok famous, just the same simple, proven strategy applied consistently over time. That's the slight edge in action. Or take someone like Dave Ramsey. Before he became the debt-free guru helping millions of people, he was broke, bankrupt at 28 years old. But he started applying these tiny daily disciplines, tracking every expense, living below his means, avoiding debt like the plague. Again, nothing revolutionary, just basic principles applied with obsessive consistency.
Now, let me share something that Jeff Olson emphasizes that completely changed how I think about money and success. He says that at any given moment, you're either on the success curve or the failure curve. There's no neutral. Every choice you make is either moving you slightly toward financial freedom or slightly toward financial struggle. That $6 coffee isn't neutral. It's a vote for the kind of person you want to become. This might sound intense, but once you understand it, it becomes incredibly empowering. Because it means you don't need to wait for the perfect moment, the right job, the inheritance from a rich uncle, or the lottery ticket. You can start right now, today, with whatever you have, wherever you are. The slight edge works regardless of your starting point. Let me give you a practical example that hits close to home for a lot of us. Student loans. The average American has about $37,000 in student debt, and most people just make the minimum payment for 20 years. But what if you applied the slight edge principle? What if, instead of paying $300 a month, you paid $350? That extra $50 doesn't feel like much. It's less than what most people spend on streaming services. But here's the math that'll blow your mind. That extra $50 a month would cut about 7 years off your repayment and save you roughly $15,000 in interest. $15,000 from a decision that cost you less than $2 a day. That's the compound effect Jeff Olson talks about. Small choices, massive results, but only if you stick with them long enough to see the magic happen. Hey, if you're enjoying our free book summaries and want to support what we do, there are a few easy ways to help. You can subscribe to the channel, become a member, or grab the book using our affiliate link in the description. And if you'd like to go a step further, you can also leave a tip via PayPal or UPI, the links below. Every bit of support helps us keep creating valuable content for you. Now, let's talk about why most people never experience this compound effect, even when they understand it intellectually. Jeff Olson identifies what he calls the plateau of latent potential. This is the frustrating period where you're doing all the right things, but not seeing dramatic results yet. It's like pushing a massive boulder. At first, nothing seems to happen, but you're actually building the momentum that will eventually create the breakthrough. I experienced this firsthand when I started investing. I was putting $200 a month into index funds, watching my account grow by maybe $50 some months. Sometimes it would even go down. After 6 months, I had maybe $1,300 total. It felt pointless. I could have bought a nice TV with that money and actually enjoyed it. But Jeff Olson's book taught me that this plateau phase is where most people quit, right before the compound curve starts to take off. Fast forward 3 years, and that account is worth over $15,000. Not because I got lucky or found some secret investment, but because I stayed consistent during the boring phase when nothing exciting was happening. The slight edge isn't about instant gratification. It's about delayed gratification that creates lasting transformation. Here's another example that really resonates with the American experience: health insurance and emergency funds. Most Americans can't handle a $400 emergency without going into debt. But what if you applied the slight edge principle? Start with $1 a day. Just $1. In a year, you'd have $365. Not life-changing, but you'd built the habit of paying yourself first. Year 2, maybe you bump it up to $2 a day. Now you're at $1,095. Total. Year 3, $3 a day, and you're approaching $2,000. By year 5, if you keep gradually increasing and let compound interest work, you could easily have $5,000 to $10,000 in emergency savings, all from a decision that started with the cost of a candy bar. But here's what Jeff Olson really wants us to understand. The money is just the byproduct. The real transformation is in who you become. When you start making tiny, positive financial choices consistently, you develop what he calls the success philosophy. You begin to see yourself as someone who makes good decisions, someone who thinks long-term, someone who has control over their financial future. This identity shift is incredibly powerful, especially in a culture that's constantly telling us to buy now and pay later. Credit card companies spend billions trying to convince us that we deserve everything right now. Social media floods us with images of people living apparently perfect lives, making us feel like we're behind if we're not constantly upgrading our lifestyle. The slight edge philosophy cuts through all that noise. It says that true wealth isn't about looking wealthy, it's about having options, having security, having the freedom to make choices based on what you want rather than what you can afford. And that kind of wealth is built one tiny decision at a time. Jeff Olson shares a story in the book about 2 friends who started working at the same company on the same day. One friend bought lunch at the company cafeteria every day for $12. The other friend brought lunch from home, saving about $10 daily. Over a 40-year career, that's roughly $100,000 difference. But again, it's not really about the $100,000. It's about the mindset that saves $10 a day versus the mindset that doesn't. The person who brings lunch from home is probably also the person who negotiates their salary more aggressively, who invests their raises instead of upgrading their car, who reads personal finance books instead of scrolling TikTok. These tiny choices create a cascade of other positive choices that compound into completely different life trajectory. Let me share something that happened to me last month that perfectly illustrates this principle. I was at Target, just picking up some household stuff, when I saw this amazing deal on a 65-inch TV, 40% off, Black Friday prices in the middle of March. The old me would have thought, this is fate, I need to buy this right now. But 3 years of practicing the slight edge has changed how my brain works.
Instead of immediately calculating how I could afford it, I ask myself Jeff Olson's question. Is this choice moving me toward my goals or away from them? The TV would have been about $800. That same $800 invested and left alone for 20 years could be worth $4,000 or more. So I'm essentially choosing between entertainment today and financial freedom tomorrow. Now, I'm not saying everyone should live like a monk and never buy anything fun. Jeff Olson isn't promoting deprivation. He's promoting awareness. When you're conscious of the slight edge principle, you make different choices. Maybe you wait 6 months and buy the TV with money you've saved specifically for it. Maybe you realize you don't actually need a bigger TV and invest that money instead. The point is, you're making intentional choices rather than emotional ones. This is especially important in America's consumer culture, We're bombarded with messages that equate spending with happiness, that suggest we deserve whatever we want, whenever we want it. The slight edge philosophy pushes back against this. It says that true satisfaction comes from making choices aligned with your long-term vision, not from temporary dopamine hits. Here's another area where the slight edge creates massive long-term impact: career development. Most people wait for their boss to notice their hard work and offer a promotion. But what if you applied Jeff Olson's principles to your professional life? What if you spent 30 minutes a day learning a new skill, reading industry publications, or building professional relationships? 30 minutes doesn't sound like much, but over a year, that's 180 hours of professional development. That's equivalent to more than 4 full-time work weeks of skill building. Most of your colleagues are spending that time watching Netflix or scrolling social media. Guess who's going to be more valuable in the job market? I started doing this 2 years ago. Every morning before work, I spend 20 minutes reading something related to my field or taking an online course. It's boring, honestly. There's no immediate payoff, no instant recognition. But last month, I got promoted partly because I had knowledge and skills that none of my peers possessed. That promotion came with a $15,000 raise, all from 20 boring minutes a day. The beauty of the slight edge is that it works in every area of life simultaneously. When you develop the discipline to save money consistently, that same discipline spills over into your health, your relationships, your career. Jeff Olson calls this the ripple effect. One small positive change creates momentum that affects everything else. For example, when I started bringing lunch to work instead of buying it, I naturally started making healthier food choices because I was planning my meals. Better nutrition gave me more energy, which made me more productive at work, which led to better performance reviews. One tiny financial decision created a chain reaction of positive changes. This is why Jeff Olson emphasizes that the slight edge isn't really about the specific action. It's about developing what he calls the philosophy of success. It's about training your brain to choose the slightly harder, slightly less comfortable option because you understand the long-term payoff. Let me tell you about the most powerful slight edge habit I've developed, and this one's specifically relevant to building wealth in America today. Every single day, I read one article about personal finance or investing. Just one article. Takes maybe 5 minutes. Nothing dramatic, nothing that would impress anyone. But over the past 2 years, I've essentially given myself a graduate-level education in money management. I understand concepts like asset allocation, tax loss harvesting, and compound annual growth rates. This knowledge has helped me make investment decisions that will likely save or earn me tens of thousands of dollars over the next decade, all from 5 minutes a day of reading. Compare that to the average American who spends about 2.5 hours a day watching TV, but claims they don't have time to learn about managing their money. It's not about time, it's about priorities and understanding the compound effect of small daily choices. Here's where Jeff Olson's philosophy gets really interesting when applied to the current American economy. With inflation, rising housing costs, and student debt, a lot of people feel like they're fighting an uphill battle. The slight edge doesn't promise to solve all these macro problems, but it gives you a framework for building wealth despite external challenges. Take housing costs. In many American cities, rent takes up 40% or more of people's income. The traditional advice of just buy a house isn't realistic for everyone. But the slight edge principle still applies. Maybe you can't afford to buy a house right now, but what if you saved extra $5 a day toward a down payment? In 5 years, that's over $9,000 plus whatever investment growth you achieve. Or consider the gig economy. Millions of Americans are driving for Uber, delivering food, or doing freelance work. The slight edge principle says, what if you used 10% of your gig income to learn a higher-paying skill? What if you invested just $25 a week from your side hustle? These tiny choices compound into dramatically different outcomes. Jeff Olson shares a concept that really stuck with me. Successful people do what unsuccessful people are not willing to do. But here's the twist. It's not that successful people are willing to do incredibly difficult things. They're willing to do incredibly simple things consistently, even when those things seem pointless.
Unsuccessful people aren't willing to save $10 a day because it seems too small to matter. They're not willing to read one financial article daily because the payoff isn't immediate. They're not willing to bring lunch from home because it's slightly inconvenient. These aren't major sacrifices, they're minor inconveniences. But the compound effect of avoiding minor inconveniences is major financial struggle. Let me share one more personal example that really drives this home. 3 years ago, I had a habit of buying books on Amazon whenever I got interested in a topic. Not a terrible habit, but I was spending about $50 a month on books I'd maybe skim once. Then I discovered my local library had almost everything I wanted to read, plus audiobooks and digital resources. Making this tiny switch saved me $600 a year, which I started investing automatically. But the bigger impact was psychological. Every time I chose the library over Amazon, I was reinforcing the identity of someone who makes thoughtful financial choices. That mindset change led to dozens of other small optimizations that collectively transformed my financial life. This is what Jeff Olson means when he talks about the compound effect of choices. It's not just about the money you save or invest, it's about who you become in the process. Every time you choose delayed gratification over instant pleasure, you're building mental muscles that will serve you in every area of life. Now let's talk about some practical ways to apply the slight edge principle to wealth building, specifically tailored to the American context. First, automate everything you can. Set up automatic transfers to savings, automatic investments, automatic bill payments. The goal is to remove willpower from the equation. You want your wealth-building choices to happen without you having to think about them. Second, start ridiculously small. Jeff Olson emphasizes that it's better to do something tiny consistently than to do something big sporadically. If you can only save $1 a day, start there. The amount matters less than building the habit. Once the habit is established, you can gradually increase. Third, track your progress visually. Whether it's a spreadsheet, an app, or just a notebook, seeing your progress helps you stay motivated during the plateau phase when results aren't dramatic yet. I keep a simple chart showing my net worth month by month. Some months it barely moves, but over time, the upward trend is undeniable. Fourth, find your why. The slight edge requires delayed gratification, which is psychologically challenging. You need a compelling reason to choose the harder path. Maybe it's financial independence. Maybe it's providing for your family. Maybe it's having the freedom to pursue your passion. Whatever it is, make it vivid and emotional. As we wrap up, I want to address something Jeff Olson discusses that's particularly relevant right now. We live in an instant gratification culture that's getting more intense every year. Social media, streaming services, same-day delivery, credit cards, everything is designed to give us what we want immediately. The slight edge philosophy swims against this cultural current. But that's exactly why it's so powerful. While everyone else is optimizing for immediate pleasure, you're optimizing for long-term results. While everyone else is financing their lifestyle, you're building assets. While everyone else is reacting to their circumstances, you're creating your circumstances through tiny, consistent choices. The slight edge isn't about being perfect. Jeff Olson acknowledges that everyone makes mistakes, everyone has setbacks. The key is getting back on track quickly and not letting temporary failures derail your long-term trajectory. If you skip your daily saving habit for a week, don't give up, just restart. The compound effect of consistency over time is more powerful than occasional perfectionism. So here's my challenge to you, based on everything Jeff Olson teaches in The Slight Edge. Pick one tiny financial habit you can commit to for the next 30 days. Maybe it's saving the change from every purchase. Maybe it's reading one paragraph about investing each day. Maybe it's bringing coffee from home instead of buying it. Whatever you choose, make it so small that it seems almost silly not to do it. Because that's the secret of the slight edge. It works not because the individual actions are dramatic, but because the compound effect of small, consistent choices over time creates results that seem impossible from where you're starting today. Your future wealthy self is created by the tiny choices you make today. The person struggling financially 5 years from now and the person living with financial freedom are separated not by one big decision, but by thousands of tiny ones. The slight edge gives you the power to choose which person you become, one simple decision at a time. Remember, success isn't about making perfect choices, it's about making slightly better choices consistently over time. That's the slight edge. That's how tiny daily wins compound into real, lasting wealth. And the beautiful thing is, you can start right now, today, with whatever you have, wherever you are. Your financial transformation doesn't require a dramatic moment. It requires a simple decision repeated daily until those tiny wins create the life you've always wanted.